Easily.
Married that night. Probably the best. People, I think. Okay, I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kern.
Here.
Mr. Rainier.
Here.
Mrs. Psalm. Here. Mr. Sharp.
Here.
Mrs. Young. Here.
Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so the first item there is to approve the agenda, but before we do that, there are a couple of amendments we need to make to the agenda. I guess approve the amendments.
Yeah, has to be.
Right. There's, basically, we had a person, Deborah Halsey, who was listed as a potential sub-custodian in 2 different spots, but she actually took a job this morning somewhere else, so we need to remove her off from those 2 spots, which is 11A, Deborah Halsey, is the 11A and 12C from your agendas. And then the 12B item, special ed preschool secretary, 1-year contract, Tiffany Martin, she also apparently took a different job, so that item doesn't come out. So remove Deborah Halsey from 11A and 12C, and remove the 12B item for special ed preschool secretary to be approved. Is there a motion to approve those amendments? Can we do that? Arlen moves, second. 6 seconds, discussion. All right, let's call the roll call.
Mrs. Psalm.
Yes.
Mrs. Young.
Yes.
Mr. Kern.
Yes.
Mr. Rainier.
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes. So now, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Justin moves. Robin second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Rainier.
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm.
Yes.
Mr. Kern.
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
Mrs. Young.
All right, and then the consent agenda. Item 1, accept minutes from the previous meeting. Item 2, accept resignations of Heather Holshoe, technology teacher effective at the close of the 2021 school year, and Kelsey Waite, 3rd grade teacher at the close of the 2020 school year. Is there a motion? So moves. Robin, second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Young.
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm.
Yes.
Mr. Kern.
Yes.
Mr. Rainier.
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes. And that brings us to public participation.
Thank you. So during the district leadership team earlier this month, we had a discussion about the importance of recognizing our Amanda staff who go above and beyond to make Amanda a great place to be for kids and for adults. So Mr. Dick will be doing a full rollout of this program starting in the fall, but because we've had some people right now who've been doing some exceptional work, I got to go first. You guys get the first glance. So with us tonight, I do have a little quote from Steve Jobs that says, "The only way to do great work is to love what you do." And there is no doubt in my mind that the people that we have on my preschool team, on our preschool team, love what they're doing, because in the last 6 weeks, we have screened 64 typical children. In addition to that, those who we felt needed to, additional evaluation for special education services, which was about another 22, we have actually been able to accomplish full psychological evaluations on those kids. And in addition, write 22 IEPs, which is amazing work. And so in that 6-week time period, they have also done their regular jobs. So they've been in since school was out. They've been donating that time to the district just to make sure that this preschool program is going to be fabulous. And so I told them I'm pretty competitive, so I want this to be the absolute best preschool that anybody knows, and that we still have 10 kids on the waiting list. 3 more people signed up today. And so I want next February for there already to be a waiting list and people know that this is absolutely the best preschool for the kids at Amanda. And so they know, and they are 100% up for that challenge. And so we wanted to take some time and recognize them because we absolutely could not be where we are in preparation to roll out a preschool program in the fall without them. And so I have certificates, and it's the first of the Golden Aces Awards that will be given. And Mr. Dick will tell you more about that in the fall when he's ready. But 3 of them, 2 of them are on vacation, and one of them left work today with a migraine. And so we have certificates, and for the video purpose, I'll recognize them. But we do have 3 of them with us, and I do want to get a picture with Mr. Sharp. So Lynn Patterson, Lynn, if you would go up front there. Lynn is a speech therapist. She's actually been employed in the district for some time, but she has certainly stepped up for me in her speech therapist role to take care of kids and writing IEPs. And so JB's coming back to take a picture. I just thought you knew that.
Thank you.
We didn't tell Kyle there were pictures either, so. So the next person to recognize is Angie Mclean, and Angie's actually someone we snatched from the ESC. She is an occupational therapist. In 32 years, the best occupational therapist I've had the pleasure to work with. So I feel very, very fortunate that she came to work for Amanda. And she is great for our kids. So, and last but not least in attendance is Jennifer Bickley. And Jennifer has been an employee of the district. She, prior to about a month ago, was one of our 3rd grade intervention specialists. And she decided to do an internal transfer to come to the preschool program. And she is absolutely fabulous. So I think at this point we can finish my sentences and knows what we're going to do. So we also have certificates for Sierra Warner, who is also a district employee who made the transfer internally to preschool. We also have Maggie Wood, and Maggie is a new employee that we also snatched from the Educational Service Center. And we are very lucky to have Maggie too. And last is Caitlin Mose, and Caitlin is our current school psychologist, but who is leaving us to go to Lancaster. But she has honestly just given an enormous amount of hours to make sure all those kids were tested. So I wanted you to know that they are really working hard, and preschool is definitely going forward, and it's going to be a great, great opportunity for the district. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
And I would like to take a moment to thank Ms. Lowe for what she has done to spearhead the preschool that was a major undertaking for us to take on. I do appreciate her work with getting us to the point where we are right now. And to have 86 kids ready, that puts us pretty much at capacity. Plus, we still have the Head Start unit that go to their own thing. So
I would also say that we've all started now to build our itinerant caseload. And so we really never talked about that in any detail. We just talked about kids in a classroom. But itinerant children are kids who qualify for special education services. But as I've said, our 32 spots for handicapped kids are full. And so we will be serving those children on an itinerant basis. So our program is going to run Tuesday to Friday. And on Mondays, those families will get to bring their kids in for services like occupational therapy, and speech and other academic areas. So again, the earlier we serve our kids, the better. So we have kids already on that list. So it's pretty exciting.
Yes.
Thank you.
I keep letting little preschool kids run around the high school. So I told April today, I said, "Are you getting used to these little ones that are here yet?" So they're just adorable. So, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you again.
Thank you.
I have a public participation. I don't know what else to say it, but speaking of little kids that are good in our district, I was fortunate enough to chaperone the band trip to Universal Studios and to Disney. We got to do Epcot and Animal Kingdom. We didn't get to go to Magic Kingdom, but I think there were 65 or 72 students, and I don't know how many chaperones. I had 9 minions that I call them. They know who they are, that I had for 4 days. And I have to tell you, the bus drivers, everybody were very complimentary of our students. Out of those 9 students, I never once had to say, pick up your trash, please be respectful, tell them thank you. Not once. They thanked the person who told them where to sit on the ride. They thanked the person who opened the door from the ride to get them out. They talked to the bus driver when they got off and said, have a good day, or thank you for bringing us. So everybody's very complimentary of our band and how polite they were, from the hotel to the bus drivers to the park. So something to be proud of from Amanda. The Amanda student and community member takes a village.
And I'd say field trips like that are just like the first day of school. Anytime you can get them to Florida and get them all back, well,
I think they all came back.
It's a success.
I
Did the
know.
kids- the
I did
kids
not ride the bus down.
Oh, that's okay. But
There's
the kids
no
did?
way. The kids did. They
That's
rode,
awesome.
they were tour buses.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, they left here early afternoon and they got in at like 7 in the
That had
morning
to be
down
fun for
there.
them. That's awesome.
And then they left down there at like 8 at night and got in the next day here in the early afternoon. So those kids were on a bus for a really long time. I don't know any even minor incidents in the whole trip with that many students. It was a fabulous trip. And I
I'm still
rode
trying to
every
find-
roller coaster ride in the world. I want you to know.
I'm still trying to find out why Mrs. Son missed out on all that fun, that bus ride. I don't know.
The Southwest was nice enough to do it. That's why.
All right, thank you, Rob.
Thank gosh.
Not aware of any other public participation, so thank you all. We'll move on to the treasurer's report.
Okay, so I did provide, and this is all I sent to you electronically, so you have it. And I did.
You're so good to me.
Hey. So I did provide an extra report this afternoon as well that goes with the treasurer's report. Every month we provide what's called the 5-year board report, which trends our data to the current month for previous years in that month, so we can see obviously the school funding and things are very seasonal, so the things that come in, like the real estate taxes, they typically come in the same month, so it's a good comparison to look at 5 years of Mays or 5 years of Aprils. The report that I provided you this afternoon and this evening actually takes that same data and compares it to where we are with the forecast that we submit twice a year. So they are 2 different reports that have similar names, but they actually give you a different perspective of the data. So just, I'm going to review that a little bit after we go through the general fund revenues. We did not receive any real estate taxes or income tax this month, in the month of May. So our general fund revenues were $909,000 and change. We did have some interest income this month, and that's because we had 2 certificates of deposits that came due. Those are the last of our certificates that had a decent interest rate on them, so those days are over. So it's a little higher this month. We did deposit both of those. One was $500,000, one was $200,000. We just sent those back in the account because the account is getting about the same as another CD would. I did talk to Mr. Evans from Kingston National Bank a little bit about some options and things, and he agreed right now tying up that money is not, we might as well just leave it in the account. It's about the same return, and it's fluid. We can, anything would change. Every indication at this point is it's still going to be probably 2023 before we see any movement, or much movement anything we can invest in. I talked to Red Tree a little bit this month too, over the last couple of weeks, just to see if there are any other municipal bonds or anything that might yield a little better. They're looking into some other options, but really every school district's about in the same boat that we are. So we have a lot of cash sitting in bank accounts getting 0.10 interest. So that's kind of what we'll see going forward. Overall, the revenue was higher than May of 2020, and that basically is because of the restoration of the foundation payment that the state gave us back this year. So those are revenues were, I'm going to call uneventful. Expenditures were about 1.567 million. We wrote checks for a total of 2.399 million, so 2.4 million. Our expenditures were up in the month of May about $150,000, and most of that is because of the scoreboard. So that was obviously something we didn't buy last year. We did expend that out of general fund and created a special cost center, so we'll be able to track the revenues from it as we are expecting to collect those over the next few years. So we'll be able to see where we are with actually paying for it. We do have commitments for well over half, maybe even 3/4 of the board. We just haven't, because the board's not up, we haven't actually collected any money on it yet. And so you'll see those in fiscal year 22. So our expenses this month, for the first time in a few months, actually exceeded our revenues by $658,000. Salary and benefits, as always, will continue to be our largest expenditure. General fund balance is $11,652,452. We have about $1,410,000 in encumbrances, which are outstanding POs right now in general fund. And the available cash balance is $10,241,791. I did provide you with some detailed reports. I believe they are in, well, actually provided with a couple extra reports. At the end, on item number 7 of my table of contents, there's a capital expenditures report, which because the capital expenditures were a little bit higher than normal, I went ahead and printed out reports so you can see what actually was charged off to that account. And then also a financial summary by fund reports. It has, I think I gave it to you last month as well. It's got a little bit more, it's just organized a little bit differently, and I kind of like the report to look at. It's very similar to the appropriations report that I think you used to see when we were on Classic. It's got some similar information as well. So I think I don't think there's page numbers on it, but anyway. So looking at the report I provided you this afternoon and this evening that at your place, what I wanted to look at is where we stand to the forecast. We are currently down about $93,000 to the forecast in revenues. That has to do with tuition. We are actually, it's offset. Actually, it's a little bit higher than that. If you go to page 1, 2, 3, 4, it's got the detail there. So our local tax revenue, which would be our property taxes, is up about $32,000, and these are actually what we've collected. The state revenue, which is our foundation payments, is up about $71,000, which that's the restoration that we got back from the cuts that were made in 2020. And as you can see, all other revenues down about $196,000. Some of that is from tuition, and that would be tuition from other districts. So open enrollment and things. We are also missing a Medicaid payment. We usually get it by now, but all government payments are behind. I do still anticipate to get that in June, so hopefully we'll be able to recognize that in fiscal year 21. Medicaid payment's about $68,000. So that's why, so the 93 is actually a net effect, as you can see, of the 3271 and then the negative 196. Our expenditures, on the other hand, are down, as you can see from the report, about $275,000. So we potentially, from what's forecasted, have an increase of cash of $181,000. So overall, we should be able to increase our cash by $1.5 million at the end of the fiscal year, barring nothing out of the ordinary happens through June, which as of right now, everything seems to be going as planned. Are there any questions on that? We have had, the one other note that I wanted to point out is IDEA, which is our special education grant. It's a federal grant. We received about $316,000 for that. We have not, all those expenditures are from the ESC. We charge those to the general fund up until May or until June, and I've got all of those now expended. So when we get the financials in June, I'll show you that expenditure. So those expenses are going to come out of the general fund, which will increase our cash. So the grant will pay those expenses, that $316,000. Any questions? Does that make any sense at all? And I think that's about all I had. I did send you a note regarding a special meeting at the end of June, so we can do the final appropriations as well as the temporary appropriations for fiscal year 22. So I think Mr. Dick has that later on in the agenda to set a meeting for that.
I guess anytime the forecast actually looks positive. A good thing. All right, I guess I should say, do you have anything else? Is there a motion to approve the financial reports? So moves, second. Robin seconds. Any questions? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes. All right. Superintendent.
All right, thank you. I would like to recommend we approve the salary increases for non-unionized employees to receive the same salary increases and benefits as afforded to the Amanda-Clearcreek Education Association, the Amanda-Clearcreek Support Staff Association, and the Teamsters, effective for the 2021-22 school year and the 22-23 school year.
So moved.
Good. Brandon moves. Robin seconds. Discussion.
This is a thing we've done that's usually referred to as a Me Too clause, so that's what we're taking action.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the substitute pay increase for the following substitute positions for 2021, 2022, and the 22-23 school year. Secretary, bus driver, education aide, cook, cashier, custodian, third shift.
Motion. Robin moves. Second.
Second.
6 seconds. Discussion.
Again, this is just so we have it and has been recognized that we do, so.
Do we-
Sorry, go Justin.
I was just gonna say, do we know where we fall with this in relation to the surrounding schools?
We are, again, we try to keep as close.
Yeah.
I asked other superintendents what they're getting, so
Right.
we try to keep as close as we can.
Cool.
And I don't know that we've done it consistently, is that we're gonna try to, anytime we were to get a negotiated agreement, that we would increase the substitute rates the same amount, so to keep a pace or something.
Yeah, that seems fair. Sorry.
Very good. That's fine. Anything else? All right, roll call.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I would like to recommend we approve the related service salary schedule as presented on page or attachment 4.
Motion.
I'll move.
Justin moves.
Yeah.
Robin second. Discussion.
Good, your question?
Do we have any idea how we compare? You know, we do a lot of work with our full-time teaching staff to do comparisons about where we stand with various schools. I understood there might have been some criticism during COVID in particular that we had trouble recruiting just based on our lower pay rates around the county and surrounding areas. Do we know where we stand?
Lady, you want to speak to that?
So, salary, so we base the salary schedule. Long story short, we always try to get like ideas of whatever, just to stay in the market, because we gotta be competitive. Obviously, we don't want to overpay, but at the same time, we want to be competitive and attractive to these services. So we start with the way I developed the schedule is I started with teacher salary and based it on that and based it on the days worked and the education level of the service provided. So speech therapy, school psych, occupational therapy, all three of those require master's degree plus, and more likely master's degree plus 30 is about where they are. Most of them, actually occupational therapy, I think, I don't know if it's still a doctor, like a doctorate like physical therapy is now or not. But taking that into consideration, then we did an index based on that. So that's where you get 1.15, 1.45. So that's how I tried to base it. And then I checked it against people in the area, make sure people are in that range. The school nurse was obviously existing, as is the speech therapist or speech pathologist. So we already had those. So these are just increases like everybody else. The school nurse is straight off of the teacher's salary at BA0 because typically they just have a bachelor's degree or just an RN, so they have the lower level of education. So that's kind of how it was developed.
And one of the reasons,
Right, or whatever, that's how we came up with it and justified it.
and one of the reasons it was created, when we brought many of the services from the ESC via the preschool, we've never had a related service salary schedule. So that's the reason it was created. And I think you would find it's somewhat close to the ESC.
Yes, that was the other thing, as some of the staff has come from the ESC, we wanted to kind of be in line with them, so they certainly weren't gonna take a pay cut to come to Amanda, but at the same time not be like, okay, you're gonna get a $10,000 raise because you're coming to Amanda's type of thing, so we try to stay in there in that range.
And I guess that, I won't say justifies, but if you remember when we talked about the transition, it was either a cost saving or a cost equalizer from bringing our services here. So it's within the forecast that we had created. So.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call?
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Song,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the job description for school psychologist.
Is there a motion? Brandon moves. Robin seconds. Discussion?
For the remainder of these, we had them in place, we had the position, so these are job descriptions that, again, we've never had to have. We've had a speech language pathologist for many, many years, but I don't know we ever had a job description for that person, so we brought on the second one. Lynn found out she was doing a lot of things that she was supposed to be doing, so it worked out great that way.
Any other discussion? All right, roll call?
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mrs. Song,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the job description for the speech language pathologist.
Motion, Sue? Robin seconds. Discussion? Same deal? Yep. All right, roll call?
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Song,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the job description for occupational therapy. Therapist.
Justin moves, second.
Oh, yeah.
Robin seconds. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Song,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the job description for the American Sign Language interpreter.
Sue moves. Robin, second. Discussion?
Again, this position was ours at one time, it's ESC's now, but we have never had a job description for it, so.
Anything else? Okay, roll call?
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Song,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the changes in the network administrator job description.
Motion. Robin moves. Sue seconds. Discussion?
Obviously, Mr. Dyer became the technology coordinator from the network administrator, and I asked him at that time to review the network administrator and add things that he was doing that was probably not in his job description when he took the job. So that's the minor changes in the description you received.
Any questions? Comments? Okay, roll call?
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I would like to recommend we approve a 2-year administrative contract for the 2021 school year, 2022 school year, primary principal Michelle Fraley.
Your motion? Justin moves. Second? Brandon seconds. Discussion?
I would like to welcome Mrs. Fraley. She's in the audience tonight. So I will tell you, I always tell you to do your best because you never know who's watching. And I called references who weren't on her list. Great things. We look very forward to help having you here, and we welcome you.
Great. I look forward to working with the students and the staff and the community. We've already become aces, so I'm ready to hit the ground running. We're really excited as a family, so we look forward to working with all of you. So
Where are you coming from?
Logan Elm. So I've been at Logan Elm for 18 years. So I'm ready to do the next 20 here if you guys are okay with that.
So it just proves that we don't hold anything against anybody. We hired her from
Yeah.
over there. So I mean,
True story.
so she's going to work with us tomorrow in our leadership group because we'll all be on our separate ways by the time Friday afternoon gets here. So she's going to be here with us tomorrow. So welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thanks
We
for
look
having me.
forward to having you here.
You look like you might be working on stocking those.
Yeah, job security. Job security.
All right, very good. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining the team. Assuming we all vote yes.
Yeah.
No pressure, just a
No
little.
pressure. Roll call.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
All right. And I always say this just so you don't feel pressure. If you would need to leave any of you, don't feel compelled that you have to stay. So I just.
Oh,
It
yeah.
happens a lot. I don't understand.
Just 'cause we
For some
have to
reason,
spend our
people
night doesn't
leave.
mean nothing.
Just so you know, this is as good as it gets. So if you're waiting on something else to happen. All right, I would like to recommend we approve the certificated contracts for the 2021-2022 school year. 1-year teacher contract with Brooke Marshall as physical education teacher, intervention specialist, 5th grade Savannah Starr, and school psychologist William Steepleton, and then intervention specialist middle school Rochelle Holtz.
Their motion. Brandon moves, second.
Second.
Sue seconds. Discussion?
I think this leaves us only with the people who resigned tonight to go.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why is Mrs. Marshall only getting a 1-year teacher contract? Because when she stopped teaching, she had to have had more than a 1-year contract.
Yes, but when we have brought people back to the classroom after being the principal, they went to a 1-year contract. It's about the language is in the contract that when we bring them back.
Just seems kind of, somebody served your district and done well and decided to step down for personal reasons. It's almost like a punishment to get a 1-year contract. Is that what we always do?
Well, we only have one at a time. That's Mr. Garrett, when he was the principal of the elementary, and came back to the classroom. We gave him a 1-year contract. So
So then next year she'd have to do another 1 year?
she'll have to do 3 1-year contracts. And then she'll go back to her 3-year contract that she had.
Is she tenure?
We do 10?
Well, that's a
Well,
I mean, and
thing.
Brooke would have been at a point in her life where she probably could have tenured before they changed the law. There are still stipulations you can become a tenured teacher.
I was not aware.
I thought she taught longer to get tenure.
You have to request it.
Huh?
You have to request it.
I know you do. I learned that early on in my board career. Okay. Huh?
I said by a certain date, at a certain time.
Yes, by a certain date at a certain time at a certain board meeting, yes, you do have to do that. Okay. All right.
Any other discussion?
Just so you know, it's not opposite any reflection on Mrs. Marshall, so.
No, I didn't think that.
Right.
I was just surprised to see the 1 instead of the 3.
Fair question.
Roll call?
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mrs. Young, yes, Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve classified contracts for the 2021 school year. Custodian Anna Flint.
Motion. Brandon moves. Second?
Yeah.
Brown seconds. Discussion?
And we hired her so that we can start her immediately with our custodian staff to make sure this building is completed, so.
Roll call?
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Young, yes, Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
All right, I would like to recommend we approve the following classified contracts for the 2021-2022 school year. Technology aide Karen Shaw, custodian Anna Flint, substitute cook cashier Tammy Lama, and network administrator Kelly Hawk.
Is there a motion? Robin moves. Second? Sue seconds. Discussion?
So, the last thing we just approved, Anna Flint was making $16.88 an hour, but in this one, she's making $17.30.
I believe that's because of the increase from the time that when the new negotiated contract takes effect on July 1st. That would be her,
So that'll be her new salary,
Yes.
and that's why it's different.
that's a
Okay,
2.5% increase, I believe.
okay,
Yes.
just making sure.
Another fair question.
Thank you. If it's not a fair question, you'll let me know, right?
Yeah, the previous
Okay.
one's for last school year, last fiscal year.
Gotcha, okay, sorry, I missed the dates.
That's fine.
Yes, she will because, you have to work 120 days to make it a full year. So she'll stay at the same step of 0, but she will get the increase of the 2.5%.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Anything else? Roll call?
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mrs. Young, yes, Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I would like to recommend we approve the 2021-2022 school, middle school and high school athletic handbook as presented.
Motion?
I'll move.
Brandon moves. Second. Justin seconds. Discussion?
There are not a lot of changes in it, so. Which, after so many years, you should have a handbook that doesn't need a lot of changes each year.
So as reading through this, I did not know that if, as a spectator, you are asked to leave,
Oh, yeah.
that you're supposed to set up a meeting with the superintendent before you're allowed to begin spectating again.
Yes, and now OHSA has in. No, we're speaking of this. OHSA has increased it to 2 games. Now, I don't know if the quote unquote community has to take place with me,
Right.
but we do, this is one of the things, somebody makes a rule that we were responsible for making sure we track that person down in the stands or, make sure they don't come through the gates.
Yeah,
So, but it's 2 events that they're, I said OHSA, I almost OHSA, it was a mid-state league. But, we're trying to do some things to crack down on fan behavior.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
Approve the 2021-2022 coaches handbook as closure 11.
Your motion?
I'll move.
Robin moves. Second? Sue seconds. Discussion?
Mr. Pat has had, our new athletic director has had, he had seen these before, he made suggestions, so, just so everybody knows he is a part of the process.
Other discussion? Roll call?
That's okay. I was just, it's probably not even anything that would be going in a coach's handbook. So it was more or less just if if the AD will be like, do they meet with the coaches and set their expectations? To do any kind of like midpoint of the season kind of?
One of the things that Mrs. Cochran and Mr. Hent and I had discussed with the onset of a new full-time athletic director, that was one of the things that was expected. Mr. Evans has met with coaches before the season starts. And prior to him going back to the classroom and teaching and being AD, he was meeting with coaches monthly, which is what we expect Mr. Paddock to do now. To review, part of the interview process was to make sure that they gave us an idea of what they were going to do during one of those coaches meetings, because I think the PD part is just as important to a coach as it is to a teacher, and to make sure that everybody's on the same page of what we want, what we expect, and what we need out of our coaches. So yes, that will take place.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Anything else? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the 2021-2022 primary and elementary volunteer handbook.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion.
Brandon moves. Robin second. Discussion?
Obviously, with some of the orders being lessened or done away with, we want to get our volunteers back into the building to help our students, work with our students at a greater rate than we were able to do last year. As I thank them every day, or every week or month when we have these meetings, we missed our volunteers last year with what they were able to do with our pull-out kids and help them. And we talked about as a leadership team, it doesn't take a half hour of time to help our students. 5 and 10 minutes at a time can make a huge difference with some of our little people. So our handbook explains what we expect of our volunteers.
Anything else? All right, roll call.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I would like to recommend we approve renewal of the classified substitute contracts for the 2021-2022 school year as presented for secretaries, educational aides, and bus aides, cooks and cashiers, bus drivers, and custodians.
All right, is there a motion?
I move.
Justin moves, second. Robin seconds. Discussion?
It ultimately becomes a pretty fluid list. It changes quite often during the year. People decide they want to help us or work, so it will be added to later.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I would like to recommend we approve the creation of additional classroom educational aides for the 2021-2022 school year.
Motion?
Um,
Robin moves. Sue seconds. Discussion?
As I gave you in notes, instead of transporting some of our students out of the district, and Mrs. Lowe, help me out here if I'm wrong,
Okay.
as opposed to transporting students to another district for our K-2 students, if we have 2 extra aides, we'll be able to keep students here. Obviously, that helps us with the transportation costs. It helps us with trying to keep as many of our students in-house as possible.
So would these aides go into classrooms that have kids that have more needs, or?
Yes, and actually we have realigned at both the primary and the elementary, and we have what we would call a self-contained classroom that mirrors a lot of the same that the ESC classroom has. So in the past, we would have potentially sent those kids to the ESC and had them have to leave the district. And now with the realignment and current resources, with the exception of a couple classroom aides, some of our kids with needs that we can now meet here with adding just a little more adult help. So it's, as JB mentioned, it's good on 2 parts. Financially, it's a great decision because we're not paying that seat cost to the ESC, but more importantly is that we're keeping our kids at home and we're more in control of what we're teaching.
Because we would have had to send our bus and seat money to the ESC, plus we would have to pay busing
Transportation.
or transportation.
Yes, well-
while we get in there.
And any other fees that the ESC chose to charge us.
Right.
So these for students that are on IEPs?
Yes,
Okay. So I imagine, we probably get additional funding for that as well.
correct. And Lana and I put a system in place to measure catastrophic cost that potentially was not billed back to the state before. And so we've been able to capture that and bill some of that money back. And the return rate, when we did it, was at right at 40%. So we have a Google form in place now where we're asking the teachers. So anything we purchase for a student on an IEP that is in addition to what we're purchasing or spending for our typical kids, we're now capturing that and billing back to the department and getting a return rate at about 40%. So that should also help us financially.
And it's a 1-year contract for each of them, right?
Yes.
Is that how that works? And there's 2 of them.
Do we have them identified, or we're just creating a position?
Creating. We haven't hired them yet. No, I know we haven't. No, we haven't hired them. We're creating them.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the creation of an ASL interpreter starting with the 2021-2022 school year.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Brandon moves, second. Sue seconds. Discussion?
As I mentioned during the job creation, we've had this position that we hired one person a couple years ago, and then we had the ESC, and we're gonna try to bring it back to us. So,
So this is currently an ESC job?
yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I would like to recommend we approve the supplemental contract for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
You want to read all of them? All 30 of them or whatever? All right, is there a motion?
So good.
Robin moves, second. Brandon seconds. Discussion?
This is an annual thing with all this many at one time.
All right, roll call.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
All right, I would like to recommend we approve volunteers for the 2021-2022 school year. Classroom, Rose French, basketball, Mike Schultz.
Sue moves, second. Robin, discussion?
Both of them are former teachers that have coming back to volunteer, so.
Really?
Yeah.
We're loading on folks.
Yes.
All right. Any other discussion? Thank you, volunteers, as always. If you're listening.
Nobody's
All right, roll call.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I would like to recommend we approve the 2021-2022 paid participation fees for athletics at $100 per person, cheerleading for $100 per person, band $100 per person, and extracurricular activities $25 per activity. A cap of $100 per season per student will include any combination of athletics, cheerleading, and band.
Motion first. All right, Brandon moves. Robin seconds. This is the same we had last year.
This is the same fees that we had last year.
Thank you, Mr. Dick, for including the band with that system. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Any discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I would like to recommend we approve summer school teachers for the extended learning for 2021 school year retroactive to June 7th. It was Monday, 6 through 12, ELA, Morgan Williams and Sarah Olson, 6 through 12, math, Debbie Young, and 6 through 12, science, Heather Evans.
Okay, is there a motion? Robin moves, second. Second. Stu seconds.
This completes the hirings for, I'm sorry,
No, you're good.
completes the hirings for our 6 through 12 summer school teachers. We had hired one at the last meeting, so this completes it.
All right, roll call.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I would like to recommend that we approve the proposal for Forecast 5 analytics for fiscal year 22.
Is there a motion? Stu moves. Second.
I'll second it.
Robin seconds. Discussion.
Will they be coming to give any kind of a presentation or anything like they, because I believe they did in the past, correct? Or no? Is that at a separate request?
I don't know Forecast 5 ever coming to us. Now, Forecast 5 used to meet with Jill and me virtually,
Mhm.
and then Layla and I talked about trying to pick up that meeting again, because they had good stuff. I mean, that's,
Well, I'm sure you can relay.
Yes.
You know, whatever.
I saw.
They
them
certainly
at
would
it.
if you wanted them to. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
they are really sharp.
I was just-
I saw them at an OSBA conference, before the big shutdown, and they do excellent.
You were
They
impressed.
They were really,
Do you think it would be beneficial, because more even than just us, I was thinking like, you know, at one point, maybe just once a year or something, having somebody, whether it be them or us, do a presentation for the public. I mean, obviously, we have the 5-year forecast, we have, you know, the board meetings are all open to the public, but I didn't know if the juice would be worth the squeeze to have a specific, you know.
are they more than presentation? Don't they provide a service so that you are able to run the analytics?
Yes.
Or That's.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a couple things, like I talk to our consultant, I believe at least once a week, if not more.
Gotcha.
Actually, talked to him already today. So I talk with them all the time, but we also have, they have what 5 casts, and so not only is it our data, but then they have a portal where we can get to our data as compared to the county, to the ODE top 10 that compares to us, like school districts. For example, Logan Allen is one of our like school districts, which are probably the ones that are closest to us that are statistically similar. We can choose school districts. So what do we look like compared to Fairfield Union? What do we look like compared to Amanda-Clearcreek, Cleveland? We can pick all kinds of stuff. Then they also have like census data and just everything that where we can create graphs. We can create like,
Gotcha.
you've got a question, I can most likely always drill down to get an answer. There's some things that match up and there's some things that I maybe can't get exactly to it, but it's pretty close. It's just a plethora of information about everything from demographics to, you know, for example, our open enrollment has started to slide a little bit. So we as an admin team can all get together and say, okay, how can we affect this? And we have all this data available to say, where are they coming from? Where are they going to? Mr. Hinton asked a question about what grade level at which are they leaving? Can we get down to that? I haven't been able to get that far. They're working on that for me, so I can see at what year they're leaving, or if there's a trend that it's 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, what is it? Is it when they're switching buildings? Is what's making people leave the district? So we can get to that information to actually then try to tackle it with some data versus just going, oh, I think it's this.
Gotcha.
So that makes sense.
Whenever we do like to compare the teacher salaries and things like that, that comes from them too, right? In terms of-
It comes from several places. Yes, definitely. Like we can compare anything that served stuff as well as, you know, anything from our surrounding districts. We also do, ESC puts them out all the time of surveys of what is this, what is that. So we have different places we go for that too. So not just there.
I will tell you, after we started working with, Forecast 5, Mrs. Bradford and I did back in probably April of 20 during COVID when they couldn't come. It's going to take me some time. The information is so vast that it's amazing what they have. I just want to be able to start being able to pull things from it to share with you as a board because it's good information. And I think that's what you spoke to, Mrs. Young, was the amount of information they can drill down for us.
Yeah, because I think it's, from what I can recall, like ODE has information out there, but it's so static and it's so, it's not friendly. Where theirs, when they presented it, it was, oh wow.
So they pull that data from, so the flow of data is EMIS. Everybody's like, what is EMIS? EMIS is our data. It's all of our data. So they pull that information from ODE and they put it into a format to compare to other districts. One of the things that I'm most interested in learning more about and continuing to analyze, because we're doing this energy project, is we can pull what is Logan Elm paying for their electric? How efficient is their building? How much are they spending on electric per student? What are we spending on electric per student? What are they spending on gas per student? You know, are we in the range that's reasonable? Are we high? I can tell you right now, we're high. Our utility bills are high, but you know, that's just a surface check. Now you can go down and it's all that information that comes out of EMIS. So we do a financial collection once a year. So once we finish the year, I'll have to do a data collection of financial information. It'll get uploaded into EMIS, and that's the data they'll pull then to populate all the stuff that comes from all these crazy codes. So the function codes and all that stuff, that's in the object codes. That's where it pulls the data so it can actually compare them all, if that makes sense. And then the thing that I like the best is it puts it in a graphic that's so easy to consume and understand. You know, so not everybody, you know, I'm not even all that financial, but I'm very visual. So if I see a graph, I can go, okay, this is making sense because this graph is going down, this is going up, and here's where the difference is and how can we affect that. And then we're taking data to actually make decisions versus going, gee, I think our electric bills are high. It says, yeah, it's actually 30% higher this month than last month, and there was no change or whatever, if there was a weather change. So that kind of thing is really good. That, yeah, it comes off the ODE, so the same stuff you're looking at, that's just gobbledygook because it's just a bunch of numbers. They're able to, you know, put that into something that we can actually make decisions from. So it's nice to go to the admin team and say, here's the information, let's make a decision so we can better the district. So, anyway.
Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Young? Yes. Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I would like to recommend we approve the preschool sliding scale from the Office of Early Learning and School Readiness based on the 2021 Federal Poverty Guidelines, attachment 14.
Is there a motion? Robin moves.
Justin.
I'll second.
Justin seconds. Discussion.
This was, obviously we use this as we start charging our preschool students to attend for tuition. So that's how we, based on those numbers.
Anything else? Yeah, roll call.
Mrs. Psalm?
Yes.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the creation of a K-12 industrial arts teacher.
Is your motion? Robin moves.
Second.
2 seconds. Discussion.
As I make this recommendation and the next recommendation, I want understood that we will only fill one position, and only fill one position if we have the appropriate and right person to fill the position. So that's one of our goals here. So
So you'll either do one or the other,
Yes.
industrial arts or STEM.
yes,
And what is this industrial art? I mean, I know what they did when I was in school, but it wasn't really a kindergarten through 5th grade kind
Well,
of thing.
one of the things we are still looking at a 3-5. We do not have a 3-5 special, that the 5th one that we need in order to meet our contract. So if by chance we could find a curriculum with a K, more like it'll be a K-12. I mean, you're right, that's not something we've done in the past, but it may be something we would do if the right person.
Oh, no, I was just trying
No,
to
no.
envision what it would
Yes.
be. But I thought, why are we short a special in the 3-5? What are we short compared to the K2? Because music, art, computers.
We do not have
Okay.
music at the 3-5.
Oh, how come?
Because of the scheduling with the high school, middle school, and primary, it has, trying to think what it was that did not allow it to happen this year. So,
It had to do with shared staff.
yeah, but it's shared staff piece.
Okay, so neither Miss Meyer or Miss
Tiller.
Tiller, thank you. I had her right in my mind, I couldn't picture.
And I would tell you, we have discussed, one of the things that Mrs. Tiller has done, she's written a grant for, guitars. Miss Meyer will obviously, will try to get band into the 5th grade. So we're gonna try to get as many grade levels as possible.
Because
That's-
band starts in the 5th grade,
That's
right?
correct.
Am I correct
It
about
is, it was
that?
not 5th grade this year because of the scheduling, but
But normal
Yeah,
years
normal
would start
would
off
be,
in
yes.
the 5th grade.
yes.
Okay, gotcha. It seems like a STEM would be more what's current with what we're doing in schools and
Yes.
no offense.
No,
But
not taken.
Well, if we pursue a JROTC, the Air Force will pay for a STEM position. Just throwing that out there, a little early.
would they pay for the whole K-12 STEM or
Well, no, it wouldn't be for K-12.
it would just be high school
Yeah,
only?
that's true.
All right, any other discussion on the additional arts portion? Again, both of these, it's gonna be one or the other between the 25 and 26, but they're filling a position with somebody who's left, so it's we're not creating a new position, it's a net zero, basically.
What would they do other than that 3-5 special? Like, say you did industrial arts, what would they?
Well, we had
Because
to
the
turn.
3-5 special would be just.
No, we had to turn students away from our woodshop class that we offered this year.
I
So
figured you
there-
would.
there's
The one
been a-
that you're offering
yes.
this fall through, though, I
Yes.
figured that would be.
It's been a-
popular.
and again, it's one of those things that when we talk about our strategic plan, one of the things was to diversify our offerings, to create
Yeah.
more offerings.
Yeah.
Both of these do that we haven't we try to as best we can with the people we have in place.
Right,
But,
gotcha.
this position takes the place of Mrs. Holshoe who's leaving. So,
I didn't realize that.
yes, yeah.
Okay, got it. So it's a net zero, that's why it's a
Yes.
net zero.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion on that portion? All right, roll call.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the creation of a K-12 STEM/robotics teacher position.
Justin moves, second. Brandon seconds, discussion.
And Mrs. Psalm, to your point, this probably does, you would hope that the right person comes for this one. One of the things that, one of the things that Mr. Brosovich has done, and we had Mr. Elam wrote a grant for 3D printers. We already had a robotics lab here when Mr. Weaver was here, and he left in 2017. We could not find anyone to replace the position. So we have some things in place right now that if the right person comes along, we could truly, at the 3-5 level, I think, create streamline some things to middle school
Oh,
career tech. So
yeah, there's advantages to both, absolutely.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve for the 2021-2022 school year to have in-person learning only for grades PK through 5.
Well, I'll make the motion so we can talk about it.
All right, Robin moves, second. Sue seconds, discussion.
I thought we were doing them online and that we developed the curriculum and what's changed?
The numbers, I'm not sure that our numbers have dropped dramatically in regards to people who came in when they were enrolling for kindergarten or preschool. They were telling our principals that they had decided to bring their student back
That was
who had originally told us they were going to be online. I had concerns about the cost of the position itself. I think, I don't know that anybody's not bringing it to us because of the COVID-related issues. So more of it was more about convenience to keep them at home to me, it's a cost savings or not creating expenditures that because we were down to less than 15 people that we had, and, I'll be honest, if all 15 of them stayed home, then it was a bad decision on my part, but I'm not sure kids will stay home now if we just offer.
Imagine the lifting of the mask mandate.
Yes,
probably had a
and
lot
that's-
to do with
And
that.
that was kindergarten through
Yes,
5, you
yes.
had 15.
Yeah. So,
And those, like you said, they're staying home for reasons other than,
and I'll be honest, I mean, I do think, one of the big questions that we had when we were doing the summer reading program, parents were concerned about were we going to require masks, because
Oh,
if we were going to require masks, they said, they weren't going to do it. And that's a huge piece for our families to make the decision to come back, is not having to do that. So, we'll see. Like I say, you can say nanny and poo-poo when they don't.
wow. Is there any other option for them through us? Like, I know the older grades have the Florida virtual and that type of thing.
No,
We looked into the K-5 or whatever Florida virtual. And
We
that's
have-
not-
I have looked into it. It's a little bit more expensive, but you still have to have a teacher of record that would be over and beyond a normal
Well,
teacher day, so.
and they will, by the time they get to 6 and above, they've had exposure to technology, to computers, they're a little more self-sufficient. I feel like, at least for PK to 5, it's the technology piece, it's more gonna be the parents getting on it and then turning around and instructing the child as opposed to like we do at the high school, so.
Well, I think that's true for the homeschool.
Yeah, yeah, oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Anything else?
All right, roll call.
Mrs. Song,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes,
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
I'd like to recommend we approve the following bus drivers for summer school: Tricia Colburn, Veronica Andrews, Jessica O'Brien, Megan Campbell, and Glenn Pierce.
Is there a motion?
Um,
Ron moves, second.
So
Brandon seconds, discussion.
obviously we're transporting our kids here, so we had that bus drivers.
Roll call.
Mrs. Song,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
yes,
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
Transportation Committee report, either Mr. Sharp or Mrs. Jones.
I can do it. Yeah, man. All right, so the main things, we're talking about van and or bus issues. If you weren't aware, our older van we had managed to become way too personal with a deer, so, and they still don't know the insurance status of that in terms of whether or not they're gonna total it or repair it. The plan is if they decide it can be repaired, then we will repair it and use it until basically the end of this coming school year, and then probably trade it in for a new one. If they total it, then we'll put that money toward the purchase of a new van to replace it, but it would be after the end of this fiscal year, so July or so. It wouldn't be right away. So that's the deal with the van. We talked about, Lana mentioned that you can get an endorsement to drive a school van in terms of a driver without them needing to have a CDL. And so we may look into that, because in some cases where there's issues where, it's a small team or whatever else, and why take a big van if you can, why take a big bus if you can fit them in a more fuel efficient van and so forth. The possibility that you can just get that endorsement, which is apparently a much less rigorous issue than getting a CDL, have some potential additional drivers who could take the van when they wouldn't be able to do the bus option. So that came up. And then we got into the bus, the age of the fleet, and there are 9 buses still currently that are between 02 and 09 years, and 13 that are from 2014 to 2021. So they're getting newer, but there's still a nice chunk of ones there that are getting some age to them. The possibility with some of the ESSER funds we've gotten, we could potentially purchase 4 more buses with ESSER funds between now and 2024. So basically 2 and 2 roughly for the next couple of years. If we, would want to go that route, the ESSER funds could potentially buy 2 of those. When that would come,
What are the prices doing with those right now? Are you seeing any type of inflationary stress?
Yes, that's why we ordered the one early, this spring. It was supposed to be after July 1st, but we went ahead and ordered it because there was a price increase May 1st. It was about $3,000, so they're getting very close to 100,000 for the size that we normally order. They were about 94, is where the last one we got.
we discussed the fact that with some of the chip issues and things that are happening, I don't know what these buses have necessarily, but even if we would order some right now, who knows if we would be able to get.
And we talked the same thing about the van.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I
it was more of a
think we
van
buy
discussion,
in July, we're not sure.
Yeah, that was more during the band discussion, when we talked about that issue with, they might not even have them to get them. I heard where somebody like at Kenworth, and they were just making all these different trucks, but then just parking it back in the lot, because they don't have the chip to go in them, to make them actually run, so they're backing all these up. So certainly some issues with those sorts of things. As you mentioned, we approved and ordered a bus that was gonna be this fiscal year, but we did it back in May, because of the price increase that was coming up. And so there's still, one more for this
Yes.
year?
For the year
For
21 or 22.
Okay. 22. And yes. So we would, I think we determined we still need to officially approve that one at some point. Second one for this coming year?
Yes.
21, 22?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would still need to approve that one somewhere during the coming fiscal year. Again, concern with potential delays and backups in production. Bus inspections are coming up next week, so.
Yeah, it's found out it's tomorrow and Friday.
There you go,
Inspections will be
Friday.
tomorrow and
This
Friday.
week. Update from 2 hours.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then the sub-rate change for the bus drivers, and so the hope is that might help us attract some additional subs, because we seem to have some issues getting substitute bus drivers. And that's all I had down.
Thank you. Legislative liaison report, Mr. Kern.
So today, the state senate passed their version of the budget bill. So we will now head to conference committee. They will hash out their differences between the two chambers' versions of that bill. The Senate, as we had talked about and we anticipated, made some pretty significant changes to the House's education funding plan. Certain ways, I think you described it, they simplified it a little bit. They just did a 2-year, a more traditional 2-year horizon, within the biennium that the budget actually covers, instead of the 6-year phase-in, which the House had done, and just fully funded their formula, where the House had not. Their plan was to kind of phase in, scale up funding over a 6-year period. So in the current biennium, they weren't even fully funding their actual formula. If you look at the numbers, it actually is beneficial to a district like ours. We're going to see more under the Senate plan than the House plan. They pulled the wellness funding, where the House had rolled the wellness funding into the formula. They pulled it back out. Now they are providing less wellness funding than what the governor had proposed. The governor, I think, had proposed pushing $600 million in the second year of the biennium for those wellness dollars, and the Senate scaled that back to much closer to what we are seeing right now in the current biennium for the wellness funds. But they did pull that back outside of the formula in their version. So, for us, it actually kind of probably works out to be a little more advantageous than the House version. So it will be interesting to see. Your guess is as good as mine what comes out of the conference committee between the two sides negotiating on this. I don't think that the governor is necessarily overly invested in one formula versus the other. This is kind of a 3-way negotiation now between the Senate leadership, the House leadership, and the governor, who The governor wields some leverage here because he has line item veto authority in a budget bill. So he can literally, in individual lines of the budget bill, go in and veto provisions. So, so it becomes a three-way negotiation. And I don't think, doesn't seem like the governor is overly invested in one formula versus the other. He really cares about those wellness funds. If anything, it's a priority for him in the education space. It's been this wellness fund. So, they'll hash it out and we'll see where it lands, but pretty significant changes, at least coming out of the Senate this week. So I know on School Board Association and everybody else who's been very much behind the Fair School Funding Plan or the House Plan, has been raising some concerns. But again, I think that's the difference between representing all districts in Ohio and not necessarily a district like ours, in a rural setting. So we will see what happens. I'll keep you posted.
Thank you. Anybody have Mr. Kern? Student Achievement Liaison Report, Mr. Renier.
Some interesting things to start with, just a couple things that I found kind of ironic. About 2/3 of college seniors want to work in offices full-time or several days each week, compared to just 2% who would have preferred to work full-time from home. In businesses are starting to incorporate more and more technology, including using video in the hiring process, whereas 80% of graduates would prefer an in-person. So I think basically the crux of what they're getting at is that after last year, a lot of students are very excited about going back in person, or including not just in school, but in the job market. And the job market seems to have switched to that virtual environment, but not necessarily having all the data, I think it sounds like. And there's several programs that are aiming to support student mental health, according to the National Center for School Mental Health. No news to anybody here, I think, was the fact that mental health took a real toll across the board due to the pandemic. So I think it's a good thing, that we did our best to stay in person. And in terms of the state, there's an advanced placement physics course that I think would be something that we might want to look into. I don't know. We probably already have.
I think we have advanced placement.
Okay, all right. Well, that was, I guess, just more or less a question then for me. But outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot that I felt was applicable in the email that they sent out. So, and I'm still very interested in looking at the JROTC. I have talked with Mr. Hinton a little bit, and we would like to schedule a time to go out to another school that has a program, and meet with them and talk to them about some of the advantages and some of the disadvantages and things that we would face. Right now, I think the biggest thing in my research that I found that might be problematic for a school of our size is it looks like they require a 100 student minimum, which is kind of steep for a school our size. Now they give you, that's on a rolling basis, so it doesn't mean that like if one year we have it and then the next year we don't, our program doesn't get axed immediately, but you have like 2 years to try and get it right. So
That's just high school.
well, yes, however, I think there might be a provision that would allow 8th graders to participate as well. So I'm also looking at the possibility of partnering with other schools, like the locals.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Mr. Hinton and Mr. Ray and I talked about, can that be done, what it would take to do that? Because again, there's obviously other schools like us that would have a hard time meeting the 100 minimum. So there's some way we could do.
Yeah, if we can partner, that would be a game changer. So right now I'm trying to figure out, but what I have found, and this is probably no surprise to anyone else, when you email, it takes a long time to get an answer back from the Air Force or, any large agency. Yeah.
I'm shocked.
I'm shocked.
Talk to somebody about that.
Well, it's better than the carrier pigeon you have to send to the Army, so.
Can't argue with there.
I'm shocked.
Thank
A lot
you.
of military
Yes.
stuff. Do you know, you guys are military, I don't know how much clout you have. If you get your COVID vaccine through the military, they don't put it in the Ohio Department of Health database. So if you have had your COVID vaccine and you go to a healthcare facility, they have no way to know or verify it. When I asked them about it, because I thought maybe they were just behind, they said, man, we don't comply, we're the national government. Okay, thank you.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
siloed.
I'm not
If you
surprised.
want me to send you a list of their things,
They
I
won't.
can do that. Okay.
They won't take like my school taxes out of my
Don't lose
paycheck.
your car if you have a COVID vaccine
Yeah,
from the
right.
VA.
There's a lot of things they won't do. so.
Shocked. They were very nice about it.
All right, principals, there are no principals here, so I assume they're not doing
No.
reports. Okay. All right, so with that, Justin, you good?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we move on then to new business. Item 1 on new business is to approve the transportation agreement with Vernon Union Local Schools for the purpose of transporting career students to Eastman from the Fairfield Career Center, as we have done in past years.
Motion.
Brandon moves, second.
Yes.
Robin seconds. Any discussion? Again, same arrangement we've done in the past. They'll conglomerate at Fairfield and then Birmingham takes them to Eastman back.
That brings it back.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Young.
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes. Item 2, approve the purchase of one van for the 21-22 school year per the Meta Bus Bids Awards. Is there a motion?
I move.
Justin moves, second.
Second.
All right, Sue seconds. Again, this will depend on what happens with the one, with the insurance for the van one.
This is in our capital budget.
Yes.
Is it a 15 passenger van or?
I think it's 12.
12?
So yeah, if they total
Just
the,
curious.
they total the old one, we'll get it earlier in the fiscal year, if they, or early in the school year, if they don't, we'll get it later.
Because I asked that several years ago. Isn't it, the van can only carry so many anyway, even if it's a 15 passenger, it can't carry 15.
Right, 12 is the max.
Gotcha.
I knew there was something.
Anything else? All right, roll call.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes. Item 3, approve resolution to allow the treasurer to make advances and transfers to various funds as needed to keep the books balanced through the end of the year and to certify accounts. Is there a motion? Sue moves, second. Second. Robin seconds. Discussion.
You want to speak to that, Mrs. Fairchild?
I can. These are transfers that would happen every year. The auditors,
To zero accounts, right?
correct. For example, this year, you're gonna see the class funds, like the class of 2011, we'll be transferring those monies to get them out of the 200 funds and close those funds. You'll see, the advances will be handled a little different. A couple years ago, the auditor state came out with some guidance on if you were expecting reimbursement, so federal grants, food service, something where you had a reimbursement waiting for you to make that account whole, you don't have to do it in advance. So we wouldn't have to pull money out of the general fund, pay it, and then pay it back when they, then the new year rolls in. So you won't see those advances. We'll have to do some transfers into food service to cover food service because the reimbursement won't cover the full loss. I will tell you though, she's made great gains on that deficit, so it's not going to be as bad as what we anticipated. And then also athletics, of course, we did not do, I noticed that the previous treasurer had done transfers twice a year. That is typically where to cover salaries for the coaches. So because we didn't have a lot of gate this year, we'll have a little bit bigger transfer into there. And I didn't do a transfer in November, so we'll do that as a final transfer too, to cover that fund. The fund can't be negative at the close of the year. So when I should have those all ready to be approved, actually prior to the fiscal year. So when we meet on the 28th or the 30th, I should have those for you guys. We'll be able to close out at that point. Any questions?
All right, roll call.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Mr. Rainier.
Item 4, approve the agreement with the Fairfield County ESC for the employment of personnel and shared services for the 21-22 school year. Is there a motion? Robin moves, second.
Second.
Brandon seconds. Discussion.
Mr. Child and I met with the ESC Superintendent Treasurer to discuss what continued services that we will need, such as the gifted and talented coordinator, truant officer. At the time, we looked at the ASL person, the American Sign Language interpreter. We're taking another look at that one. It was not a part of this contract, so that's the personnel that we're hiring with this particular motion.
Much left.
Not much left.
It seems to be the things that are actually shared, like the gifted, like the attendance, things that we actually need to share versus in the course units. But the things that, you know,
I'm just sending us a full-time employee anyway.
Yes.
correct.
And that's
paying
being
a premium
and
for it.
paying
Yeah, and what we found
administrative.
is the employees that take insurance, their insurance is about $12,000 higher. So we're paying an additional $12,000 in additional, our insurance would be if we hire them directly in the same consortium. It's not the
Real
exact
savings.
same plan, but it's the same providers,
Plus 5%.
so.
So ours is less expensive.
Ours is $12,000 less for a family
Wow.
plan.
Okay.
And that's just for the insurance too.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, the lovely administration, the 5%. So,
Makes sense.
All right, anything else? All right, roll call.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes. Item 5, approve staff leave without pay. Eric Fowler, Heather Covell, Goble, and Kelly Thaxton for the dates presented. Is there a motion? Justin moves, second.
I'll second.
Robin seconds. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes. Item 6, approve the agreement with Circleville Physical Therapy Incorporated for services for the 2021 school year. Is there a motion?
I move.
Robin moves, second.
I second.
Justin seconds. Discussion.
Again, I would take it back to this is we have been using Circle Physical Therapy at length for our students who have physical therapy in their IEP, but that are not served by the ESC. We're moving to serve those students, Circle Physical Therapy, due to the hourly rate that the ESC charges us for these physical therapy services versus what Circle Physical Therapy charges. So it is another cost-saving measure. I don't necessarily always want to be about money, but when you look at our analytical 5 report, when you look at the expenditures that were down $275,000, it's not near as much about sometimes revenue as it is about expenditures. And we get to control expenditures many, many times. We don't get to control revenue. So I think that's the reason that as a board and your leadership, we've taken far greater, closer looks at what we're doing.
Good. Anything else? All right, roll call.
Mrs. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Rainier,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes. Item 7, review the rating package for fiscal year 2022 for the SCOIC Health Benefits Program, attachment 18. Is there a motion?
There's no motion needed, it's just
Sorry.
a review.
Okay.
We approved the rate increase last month, so in May for the 2%, and then 0 for vision and 0 for dental. We just provided you with the whole plan summary to review, because it is such a big expenditure, a big part of our financial picture. We provided that for you for your review. thought you needed something else to read. Anyway, if anybody has any questions on it, please let us know.
Thank you. Anybody have anything? You said the rates.
It went up 2%, Yeah. which is nice because it was forecasted at 12.
It's much better.
2 is much better. And we still have a very healthy, what I want to call it, reserve. So because we're self-funded, when we pay our premiums, those go into almost like an escrow account, and then we pay the medical costs out of that. We are still to the good, almost $1.2 million. So we're doing well. Like our fund is very healthy. So that means that we should see some stability continue through 22, barring no major catastrophic claim incidents. We do have stop loss, which means once a single claim gets to a certain amount, another insurance picks up and it's not charged against us. But if we had multiple claims that were under that threshold, that's where we could run into some problems. But because we have that healthy reserve, we probably are pretty insulated for another year at least. So it's doing well.
Anything else? All right, next item 8, approved 3-year contract with Miller and Sons for mowing and lawn maintenance for the following 3 years, 21-22, 22-23, 23-24. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Brandon moves, second. Robin seconds, discussion.
Just so, for a transparency here, Miller and Sons came in around the $28,000 mark, and we had 2 bids. The next bid came in at $83,000. So there was a significant difference in the two. So
What are we paying now?
I think it's 28. I think it's $1,000 per mow, and then
For 70 mows.
is it like for 26 mows, and then that's what's based on. And then
Usually happy with this mowing compared to what we
The
had
previous,
previously.
yeah.
exactly.
To previous when
Yes.
Miller's and Son did it.
And then there's additional cost for the mulching piece, and the spraying of the fences. So much less expensive than that.
Being in that business, I can tell you that it's a good deal.
Oh, no, I'm sure it is.
And just so you know, 3 years ago, we had a bid that was over 80,000 as well. So I mean, someone is very proud of their lawnmowers and the job they do. So
And well, like Robin said, I mean, from when they did it in the past and then the other company, there's a 9-day difference, I think, between the service.
I haven't had a word said to me about the mowing, so that's always good. Oh, that looks nice.
Yeah, and it's much better than trying to do something like that in-house.
Oh,
The
yeah.
cost for this
Yeah.
is so significant because we don't have to maintain mowers. We don't have to have somebody on the workers' comp line. It's much higher for this.
Mhm.
All right, anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mrs. Song? Yes. Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes. On to discussion items. There's a second reading for 4 of the different policies there. Policy GA, personnel policies goals. EBC, emergency management and safety plans. EBCDR, emergency closings. And IGCG, preschool program.
There were no suggestions last week, so we brought nothing back. I still have 2 of the attorneys we looked at, so then we asked about version 1 and version 2 being combined to make one policy. That was still being reviewed, and there was nothing brought back because no one had any suggestions for me to change last time, so.
I think the only thing that we asked about at all was with the emergency closings. The one thing said we could only limit
Yes.
3 online. Did you look at that?
That's still the case, but there's still the talk about that being changed, so.
Yeah.
Say that again, I missed it.
All about, there was a spot there in the emergency closing where it said you could make them up online, but there was a max of 3. And I remember we brought it before. I said, why is that? I mean, we just went this whole school year
That was in
basically
our
with an
policy?
online backup plan.
That's in their,
It was OD.
it's ODEs, but it's in the language of policy EBCD. regulations, so.
And we can't change that?
Well, that's why I'm in the process of looking. That was the question that the board asked about. We talked about, we created.
Trying to change it, right?
Yes, because they wanted to replace some of it with, do it baggy, not baggy books.
Lizard
Lizard bags, yes.
They call it.
That, so, because what everybody did for the past year was a far better product for
Oh
our
my
kids
gosh,
than
yeah.
lizard bags. So more real time.
I think that Senate bill, Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, they put it.
They
got a
put something
provision in
about, yes, they do, and I think they're gonna change that.
Yeah.
They
Well,
put it
there.
in.
Stick, yeah, it's in right now, I believe.
It's something
Allow
about.
for continued online.
Yes, which
Online
I
options.
question our K-5 thing we just passed, whether or not we'll have to go back next month and amend that, depending on where that actually, what the language of that is.
Well, I think it's permissive, so it's up to the district,
Okay,
but it would change the state guidelines, state law to allow for it.
Maybe it's pretty heavy-handed if it, like, required it, I would think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's huge.
That's a financial burden that they're, forcing on us for sure.
Okay, so anybody have anything else related to those policies then? If not, we will move on to the band room discussion. And I know there's been numerous people talking about, the only thing I've heard is, gosh, it's a lot of money for just a band room. And I think, in my mind, I can justify that expense anyways, but I'm not opposed to the idea of if we could come up with something that would be more multiple use, but if we do that, then the price tag probably goes up as well in terms of the project. So,
Were you able to talk to anybody who had done those multi-use facilities rather than?
I have not.
No.
You talk about like
And I can share an article that there's Southeastern schools did a multi-use pole barn style building for the same price as what we're quoted to build a band room addition. And in my mind, we can make a multi-use facility, and even if we designate a portion of it solely for the use of the band program, and they have their own facility within that, and we can place it centrally located on the campus where a lot more students can use it. To me, that's a lot better use of money, if we could serve more students. So that's,
Yeah, I agree. I think the good thing about that is you bring the cost per person or cost per pupil for the use of the building to a more reasonable level. I fully agree and am in support of making the band room fit the number of students that we, not only that we currently have, because as I understand it, we already have more than what the room really should be allowed to have, but then also giving us room to expand. But I think that the idea, and I would say when you have, it is more expensive, it might be more expensive, but if you look at it as cost per pupil in terms of who's going to get the benefit from it, it actually would probably even out, even if it was a more expensive building. And then you also think about the fact that the community might be able to use that building for certain events at times too, given our policy that we may have to revisit now because we did it right before COVID. But, I think the plan prior to COVID was to try and allow more access to the buildings, to the community, to make use of the facilities if they weren't otherwise, in use. But, one thing too that I wanted to look at was, we're doing a lot of construction right now, like on our base, and I know that the prices just in general of everything, you want to build a house right now, it's 34% due to material costs, 34% higher. So yes, the interest rate was super low. It made perfect sense to, do what we did. But then at the same time, do we want to execute on that right now when the cost of everything is skyrocketing? Not just materials, but even labor seems to be hard to come by. The supply chain is dragging out lead times for everything. So something that, a band room that might have been able to be built in, 12 weeks might now take, twice as long or something like that. So these are things that I think we should be pensive about and make sure that we look at because, it's a need for sure. I don't want to downplay that or dismiss that in any way, but Just want to make sure that we do it for the maximum benefit and we do it wisely.
When I spoke with the architect after our last meeting, their suggestion would be hoping that they would take the schematics and like draw up schematics in like September, October. Do the bidding process, December, January, hopefully break ground because it would not affect, where it's being built, it would not affect our current classroom, and then they would hope to have it done by the 1st of September 2022. If that was, so to your point about their issue was we may delay in hopes of a price decrease, which I'm not sure we're gonna see decreases in 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, but how long do we have to really to execute? And what are our options if we don't, from like a financial standpoint?
We don't really have a timeline to execute. The finance package has been done. We have the money in the escrow account. It's sitting there.
Yeah.
So that part is, we're paying interest on money we're not using. There's that cost, but because the interest rate is so low, that cost is minimal. We have, because of the increased cost of materials, we've run into overages on the stuff we are doing right now. So that'll eat into that a little bit, not too terribly much. If we need to access those ESSER funds to help pay for this, those have to be expended before 2024. So that would be a timeline that we probably would want to keep in check. But that's kind of the financial picture of it. It's not
Before the end of 2020.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that a calendar?
September 30th,
December, okay.
September.
Of 2024.
Yeah, because the grant cycle ran on yet another calendar. So you have your calendar year, and then you have your fiscal year, and then you have the grant cycle year. And that ends.
It sounds like September 2024 is a hard deal.
I will
They would have to
speak,
be expended prior to that. So we'd have to actually cut the check with somebody and pay for something.
Mr. Kernan sent me the thing from Southeastern High School in Ross County. I will contact someone, because obviously they had someone, I'm assuming they had someone who helped them come up with the plan. I'm sure there's probably more than that company's done for more than this Southeastern. So I will have some things for you about multi-use buildings.
Does Logan have something similar?
It's a different ballgame.
It's a bit of a Cadillac.
No, somebody just mentioned that.
Yeah.
I know
That seems to be coming,
It's
Logan
different than
comes up
what
a
I
lot
think.
today.
But Liberty Union just built a big barn
Yes.
structure type building design as well. So I'd be interested in what their cost was and what they're using it for. But this article that I found, you're talking about like a 17,000 square foot building for the same price that we're talking about building a band room addition.
Now,
I
we'll
don't know how
say,
we
in
can
defense
not
of
look into that
everything,
option.
I don't know when that building was built.
It's 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you were to build that same building right now,
Sure.
it would probably be
Yeah.
significantly more.
Would the cost that they quoted us for the band room, it certainly is.
It certainly won't be the price.
Right. So we know that whatever we saw, it's going to be
It's
higher.
higher than what we saw, what they quoted, us,
Yeah,
or what they estimated.
At least in the current world.
Yes.
Until hopefully the prices will go back down once things start flowing again in terms of lumber and such.
And, because I'd like to talk, Ms. Marna, it just hit me here. We talk about centrally located. To be centrally located, it would require us, I think, to move the entire band facility that we have now, where everything takes place with band would have to be moved. So I don't know what that looks like. Obviously, I don't know why it couldn't be different than what it is now, but that's certainly something we got to think about when you think about storage and all that. Even though we were looking at adding it, making what we have now into a storage area, bands or instrument storage area, that would have to be moved to this new facility we're talking about. So
Southeastern's was approved by the board in February of 19.
Oh, so it's new. I mean,
And how many square feet is it? 17,000?
15,000.
15, and what's our band room that we were looking at? Just roughly.
I don't have it in front of me.
That's okay.
It's probably nowhere near that.
Well, I think the whole thing about spreading it out among all, more students, regardless of the square footage.
Right.
No, I was
That's
just trying to
the
get a
advantage.
visual on size, because if we did that separate, you'd have to move. The band area would take more space, because current band area was gonna be used in smaller addition, but I'm sure they were looking at brick and stuff like that, which is a higher cost than a pole barn type, facility by far. I'm just, so is there options for the band to come in more compliance with the number of students per room in the coming year?
Well,
Is that a, I know that's the driving force to talking about this.
right. Obviously, we've been in the gymnasium this past school year. It's,
You've been
probably.
gym 1 or 2?
Yeah, gym 1,
Gym 1.
only because of location,
Right.
compared to the
Right.
storage room now. It's obviously not the best thing for instruments to be being moved, your percussion being moved daily. It obviously takes your gym away from,
Oh, it takes time out of
yeah,
the class.
yeah, it absolutely takes away from the instructional
Huge
time
time in the
because
class,
she,
but-
because of that. Moving to and moving from, we have, I hate to say we've looked at everything, because as soon as you say we looked at everything, then somebody says, well, have you looked at?
Well, I guess I'm just kind of thinking outside the box, but show where gym 2 is, the small gym, right? Gym 2. And then off of gym 2 is like the wrestling room. Am I right about
Yes.
that? I'm just wondering, could you flip those items and the wrestling room be more over where the band room is, and flip the band where they would practice in gym 2, but their storage would be right there, kind of like it is, knowing that at night you're gonna need gym 2 for sports, whatever sports we're doing. I don't know, I'm just trying to think outside the box, like, is there storage around there where they would have to move so much stuff? Like, could you flip that wrestling room where there's a weight?
I never
room?
thought about that, but I mean, I
Isn't
know
there a
where
weight
you're coming
room,
from.
a wrestling room and a weight room, or are those the same room?
No, they're separate. There's a weight room, which is the same size, I think, as the wrestling room.
But that
They're
band
side to
room
side.
is pretty good size.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know, like, if you, I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, could you move that back over there and move Corey's stuff over to the other side?
But, and I'm just putting out that she has other classes throughout the day other than large group band last period. So,
Well, right, but I'm just thinking they could use it through the day, that would be her new area. Could those other classes, because why not? I mean, I know you need some gym space for the grades to do their gym, but is gym 1 not available for that? Do we?
well,
not use that?
we currently have gym classes phys ed classes for 6-12 taking place in gym 1 and 3-5 taking place in gym 2 simultaneously. So,
Could they take place in the cafetorium? I mean, that is a cafetorium. I'm just
I know, I'm just,
trying to throw some options out there just to kind of be more in compliance for now and trying to, I don't know.
Just as an FYI, the 2 plans with the additions were adding, one would add 3,466 additional square feet, the other would add 4,490
Okay.
square feet.
you saw how big was that one?
17,
15,200
15.
square foot.
But you always need 5 of that if you add all that storage to it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, it doesn't mean you can just make that bigger. I'm not, I'm just,
I guess the
I don't know.
one thing
It's
we
worth a
were-
walkthrough just to kind of see what's down in that core area that maybe you could
when we're
move around.
talking multi-use for whatever this potential room might be, I guess we just need to decide what all other uses are needed. Like what would we try to, what would it be?
We're in terrible need of new locker rooms and bathroom facilities for the sports complex down there. We need more multi-use athletic facilities. And just a multi-use, something that's a flexible space for even during the school day where
I
Our
would say,
staff can use, I mean, those are,
one of the things we've talked about is, I mean, obviously you wouldn't specifically do it for this purpose, but inside recess is a huge piece.
Yeah.
And, you know, because there's wear and tear on the classroom, we have, so I mean, large open spaces, I don't know that we're ever gonna waste regardless of what we use it for. And that's obviously the,
Well, there's been conflicts in the past too with certain sports teams, right? Like volleyball and, oh, help me out. Well, volleyball, basketball, or,
they're all.
I mean, there's, it seems like there's always conflicts of folks that need gym time and have a valid
Well, I
right
mean,
to it.
gym was one, obviously, the thing that came to my mind was, you know,
Mhm.
if it's a big open space, you can put some hoops on either end, and it doesn't need to have stands because it's just for practice or something like that. Sort of
Wow.
thing, so.
And a lot of the churches have gone to those big open spaces that the youth, especially under the seventh, sixth and under use. I know our church has one in Lancaster and there's the Frontline Church has one. I'm not advocating for carpet, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying the big open spaces you can.
Yeah, I mean, I was literally thinking, you know, the primary gym up there is, you know, works fine for practice gym.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like for a building of decent size, you could put almost two of those and have two other courts for you know, because that's not that big. Two other courts for potential practice or whatever, and still have a nice big open space that would work for band and whatever else.
square footage wise.
Yeah, just curious.
I think when you.
Just for a visual.
What do you ask for?
I was just curious how big your Recplex is in Lancaster, the one that's behind the Dairy Queen.
It's probably a little more than 15,000 square feet, but it's.
I mean, it's huge when you're in there.
Yeah,
And when you scale up, it's surprising how much the cost isn't necessarily affected. Like, you know, I mean, if you wanted to go from 10,000 feet to 12,000 feet or something like that, or from 12,000 to 15, you'd be probably surprised how the price wouldn't necessarily be affected by that.
I'm not sure how big the Rexplex is. I don't have ever been in it, but our 77 gym, if my memory serves me, is 12,000 square feet.
Just the gym or all
If you were
encompassing?
balcony, from balcony to balcony,
Yeah.
yeah,
Just the shell.
Yeah.
It's how much?
12,000.
12? Okay.
And it's been used for years. And good space.
The only other thing to consider in terms of the type of thing with the pole barn type aspect versus a more brick and mortar is just how long it's gonna last. I don't know how long, I mean, obviously they keep making advances. I don't know how long one of those pole barn ones, pole barn ones, you know.
Separately, I wondered about the acoustics for a band.
Right.
yeah, I mean, we'd have to, they have to have their own designated space within that where you'd have to
Oh, yeah,
accommodate
they
and
have to
build
have
for
their own
the
spot.
acoustic, yeah.
Just because of you would want
Yes.
anybody in with their instruments or.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, that would
So
definitely be.
They can put those tiles and stuff in that do the acoustic thing pretty well.
We've got kind of those apparatus, I don't know what they're called, but you
Yeah.
know, the backdrop behind
Yeah,
the band,
I don't know what they're called, but
I think it would do justice to both the band and to a lot of other students and staff, I feel like, just, you know, I guess my thing, at least it warrants more investigation, in my opinion, to see, you know, and I don't know if that means maybe looking into somebody who gives us a cost for, you know, a multi-purpose building, you know, and then we just kind of weigh the options.
When you do a large capital expenditure, I think you just owe it to yourself to look at all the
Mhm.
needs that are out there. And we certainly have additional needs, and if we can combine and gain good economies of scale and serve as many students as possible, then we
for
owe
the
it.
coming year, I'd like to look at that gym two, a small gym with the other two rooms that really aren't. The rest of the room's not an academic room, no offense intended to wrestlers, but it might be possible to move that. I don't know. It's worth looking at.
I don't want to be negative either, but in the off chance that something like a COVID pandemic type situation happens again, having additional space where students are able to spread out and still be able to accomplish band and possibly other things as well, I think that would also be helpful. I mean, just trying to think forward about if we were ever to find ourselves in this scenario again, having that additional space, could help. So just a thought.
I will contact Hayes Valley, a couple other places I know that are doing the multi-purpose facility. So I'll make some contacts and then we will hopefully get more information that will allow us to
Yeah.
take a look and go someplace looking for
Ask
this.
Ask them how they used it during the last year, how they made use of it during the pandemic. That is to say, if they were back in person. If they weren't in person, then I guess it's a non sequitur. But if they were back, I would be curious to hear if it was useful to them in that regard.
I keep looking at the picture in the back room, trying to think, how big of a footprint are we talking? Where might make the most sense to fit something in there, in terms of that too, so.
Someone from the staff had mentioned about trying to put it in between the elementary playground and where the elementary wing is on the northeast corner of the building.
Honestly, the best place is where our bus parking is right now. And, do we have an option to find alternative bus parking somewhere on the campus?
I kind of wondered about that also.
That's the idea.
Because
Which bus parking? When they,
Back in the back.
Where the bus barn is, right?
oh, the
now.
bus
Oh,
barn?
Yeah, the bus
Oh.
barn, right? Because then that would be the most centrally located spot on the campus between the K2 building, this part of the campus, the athletic.
That makes it more of a challenge though for
The band.
band. If it's weather at all, the band can't pick up their instruments and go walk across the parking lot. Too bad.
Well, I would think we would do it, all their storage would be in that building.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. They would store it in there. I wouldn't expect them to move it.
But it would take a fair amount of time and take time away from that class.
To walk?
Hike down there and then hike back up.
I can't imagine it would take more than a couple of minutes, but yeah, I suppose you're right.
If you're on the high school wing, you gotta go all the way over there. It's a hike.
Yeah, I kind of wondered about that.
To the bus barn?
These kids in high school have a hard time getting to the ag wing. If they're on this end and they have to go to the ag wing and they have 3 minutes, JB?
For
4.
They should walk faster.
Well, that's what we have.
Always
One thing
on
the one
3 minutes isn't very long, 'cause you gotta go to the
Thing
bathroom,
when I
put
was
your
just-
backpack and shit there.
was that back parking lot is
Yeah.
smaller when they're in the back.
You're
Whether or
right.
not, because then you could still connect it to the existing band room. If that back parking lot is a big enough area to put back there, then you could, if we needed that parking space, you could come around and put parking space there along the back somewhere for whoever's parking back there in that back lot.
Do much get parked back there, JB, outside
Pardon?
the band room? Does much parking really go on there?
No,
Other than when the band is doing something, obviously, but
staff parking is probably 3 or 4, Miss Meyer, Miss Tiller,
yeah,
a couple custodians parked back there.
so it's not really.
No.
Doesn't have to be used for that.
Okay. All good stuff.
Okay.
I will have some things to you at the next July meeting, July 2021. One thing that good,
Yes. For our next meeting on the 14th, is that right?
I was just gonna look.
14th. Do we want to change the date to where Ms. Fairchild can be here, or do we?
Oh, were you gone that week?
I am.
Yeah, or are we good with a stand-in
No, don't be
in
sorry.
her place with that?
So if you have somebody in my place, which is perfectly fine, Ms. Tatman, our new payroll person, she will be here to take notes. I believe Ohio law dictates that you would have to appoint someone on the board to be the treasurer pro tem, but she can show up and take the minutes or take the notes and maybe answer some questions if you have any questions, but I would definitely provide everything ahead of time and answer any questions you have prior to financials, because that will be the meeting you will have the fiscal year end stuff, so.
Do we need to move it by a day or by a week, or if we were to move it? Is it just that
Actually,
night
we-
that doesn't work, or is it?
No, I'm actually going to the Grand Canyon, and I'm gone from the 11th to 21st.
So it need to be like a prior week,
Yeah.
because it's like we moved it to the previous, because that Monday wouldn't work, but the prior
Wednesday, maybe, I don't know. Which would be the
Yeah,
7th, but
That would either be the 7th or
Look at the
move it
8th.
to the 22nd. Yeah, I guess
yeah, or if we did.
we went through the 21st.
I mean,
I'm
I don't know
fine
from a
with the
treasurer's-
7th. I don't care. I'm okay with the 7th.
Yeah, I'm okay with
I
that.
don't know if anybody else had vacations that time. Are you here then, Mr. Dick?
Yeah.
I know that's the dead period, so I just didn't know.
I don't think I'd be here either of those Wednesdays, so that's fine.
Wednesday, the 14th?
Yeah.
Is the 7th better
I
for
don't
you?
think so.
No? Okay.
That's all right. I mean,
It's July. It's a hard month to,
we
Yeah,
gotta
baby.
pack everything we need to do in a couple week window there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't play around.
so actually we'll be back to work on the 22nd. And
so the
This-
7th is out for you?
it's not out. I'm really concerned because the 5th is the holiday.
Yeah.
And
Get everything done.
so Thursday we'll be able to close, which I anticipate that being okay. I don't think we're gonna have any issues with it. It is the first close with redesign, so to have one extra day would be the 6th. There's no possible way you'll have financials way ahead of time. If you get them, it'll be the day before. That's what I'm a little uncomfortable with, is getting you those financials the day before it's a fiscal year end.
Is there anything major treasurer standpoint wise that would come up, that's coming up in July for that 14th meeting that,
Can we move it to the 21st?
22nd, she's not back.
22nd,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I-
I see that.
There, not that I am aware of, I was more concerned for JB because the 9th is the date for people to resign, so if you have somebody say, I'm leaving, on July 9th, he's going to be wanting to hire somebody, ASAP, so he would
But
be
he
more
can do
concerned.
that.
I can, with board action you have given me, I can hire them.
So that would be the only thing I think would come up. We don't have anything other than fiscal year end in July that's.
But we're gonna meet the end of June anyway, I thought I heard you say.
Yes, we'll need to have a special meeting at the end of June to do the appropriations, a temporary, which they'll be temporary, but they'll be pretty thorough, so they'll be.
Right. So we can add something to that agenda if we had to.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yeah, I think you'll have some personnel hires. Will you have
Yes.
some this for the?
I will have.
Well, I'm fine waiting till the 22nd then, just in lieu of having the meeting the end of June anyway.
I guess the question was, are you gonna be functional and alive the day after you get back from being gone that long?
Alive, I'm not sure. My mom said, my sister and I are going, one of us will
Or be
go,
able to have-
one will return.
All the treasurer stuff in order for the meeting that night.
Well, I should have it done before I go, so.
Yeah.
Yes, I should be able to get the stuff sent out to you guys hopefully by the 8th. And then when I get back.
Or
maybe
the
the
other
9th.
option is Friday the 9th. That gives you more time.
I don't want to do
Oh, okay. That's
So
okay.
if you can do it on the 22nd, yes, I mean, we don't get back until late on the 21st, but that's neither here nor there, it's not a big deal. Because
Well, we're
meeting's
gonna
not till
make
7
it
o'clock at night, I can, yeah, if I have to.
We're gonna make you get up and come right in, trust me.
Well, Debbie said 6 a.m. would be
Maybe,
here.
maybe we can make it one of those short meetings,
Sounds reasonable.
not a giant agenda.
That's a bad idea. So, 22nd, is there a motion? Do we need a motion? Can we just change it?
I'm fine with the 22nd.
Anybody have any opposition to doing it the 22nd then, Thursday night?
It's fine with me.
Okay.
Do we have any committee meetings at night?
Yes, I think it's the, will be the cafeteria. It might be athletics. But there is a committee meeting each month, so.
Okay.
And then do you want to do the special meeting, date too?
Yeah, what are our two options again?
The 28th through the 30th?
28th or 30th, so either a Monday or a
We
Wednesday.
don't wanna do a Monday.
Okay.
We've been having Wednesdays and they work out for me.
So, 30th it's looking like, unless somebody is opposed to that idea
Oh, this is the 30th of
for
June.
the special meeting.
Mhm.
You just need things approved by before July 1st, is that correct?
Correct, yes, so we'll do the final appropriations. And with the other thing that I just wasn't comfortable doing it this early in the month, we've got construction projects going on, we've got summer food, which we don't, we did last year, but we're doing again this year, we've got a lot of extended learning stuff going on. We have expenditure going out that I was too afraid if I did them online, they would have changed and I would have had to call for a special meeting anyway, so. Because actually, once you guys approve those final appropriations, heaven forbid something happen.
You can punch me in the throat later, but this meeting should be very quick. I mean, there's not gonna be a lot of.
Famous last words.
That's why I said punch me in the throat later. But I mean, the few hires we can do in order to make sure we get people under contract and the.
So,
Yeah, transfers. and
7 o'clock for both of these then, still? Normal meeting for sure, because it's almost typically 7, but 7 for the other one as well.
I'm okay, so.
Okay, so June 30th at 7 for the special, July 22nd at 7 for our regular July meeting. Okay,
Ooh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
any other
You're fine.
discussion with either of those, or otherwise that's what we'll go with? All right. And then the next item is a motion to
adjourn.
no, moved into executive session.
Oh, wait, we don't move to adjourn.
Yes. Motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel. Is there a motion?
I move.
Just a move, second. I'll second. Roll call?
Mr. Renier,
Yes.
Mr. Sharp,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mrs. Young. Yes. Mrs. Hall.
Yes.
I said yes, did you?
There will be no action taken after the meeting.
Okay, may I get the rest of your story?
Lana, can I ask you one question?
Yes.
In regards to the poverty,
Are we
I've had a lot of
executive
parents
session?
ask for that, and I told them after today,
Wait,
He's gonna shut up.
I would put that out to those parents. So that requires parents to